Thank you for joining. I'm Jillian with Jillian Paints Curbs, and I'm hosting a podcast called Curb Culture. This podcast is meant for people painting curbs or want to paint curbs, even interested in getting their curb painted. This is for you guys. I'm going to be introducing y'all throughout this season to amazing, talented, incredible curb painters that are from all over the United States. We have built this community that is irreplaceable. I am so blessed to be able to be a part of it, and I've never felt so accepted into a community. I want to be giving a platform to us so that we are able to learn from each other, provide resources, promote our business, and I want us to thrive. So yeah, I'm so excited to be doing this. And for our first episode, we're going to the basics. We want to start this podcast with the foundation, understanding where it started, it became, and what it will be. I have a very special guest. It's a couple that is such good people. Missy and Willie are from Continuous Flow in Florida, and they are insane. I mean, the talent, it's crazy. I was able to connect with them through TikTok is where I saw the most detailed, beautiful turtle. One of my favorites. I'll show you a picture of that. Him and Missy are the most amazing people I've ever met, honestly, and I wish them the best. I will have them on again. But Willie and Missy kind of just break it down, the curb painting industry, going from a basic design to a custom art extravagant design. We touch on social media and how it has changed the game for us. I also asked where the future for his company and curb painting is going. And now the reason why we're talking about this is because I want to start writing the history books for curb painters. My goal in the next maybe 10, 20 years is for us to have an association. I want us to have conferences. I want us to have a lot of sponsors come and sponsor our work because we're using their spray paint so often. And I just want us to have a real fighting chance to have a legit business industry that has a lot of potential and a constant demand. And I think that it is one of the funnest, low cost, high return company that you can own, and you can do it overnight. I'll tell you a quick story about my startup and how I got into it. It kind of was a couple of factors, but it started with me delivering some food, and it was so hard to find houses. The numbers were never where they were supposed to be, and definitely did not have them painted on the curbs. And it was just really, really frustrating. Now, I'm an artist, and I wanted to also stop delivering food because that's not where it's at. There's no money in that. But I wanted to be able to obviously make art and make money at the same time. My mom and I were talking one day and she brought it up. I think she had brought it up before, but honestly, this is the day I listened. So she mentioned, when I was in college, I did that. We would make so much money. We just go around, knock out 20 in a day, and we just you know, we made great money. I was like, wow, I could actually probably make really cool designs. And so what I did was I got on Canva. I put in my pricing, why they should get their curb painted for safety reasons and delivery reasons. I had no work to show for it. It was all based off of the flyer that I was producing with no pictures on it. Well, I posted on the Facebook group, my neighborhood that I lived in. And I swear, before I went to bed that night, I had my entire week full of painting. Like, oh my gosh, I was in for it, man. And let me tell you something, I didn't stop painting for like 2 months. It was that busy. I want this platform to be full of educational content, stories, relatable stories, advice, expertise, roundtable discussion. I want to have live demonstrations. And I know that you guys can do this with me and make it happen. So let's make it happen. Okay, so here is the interview with Continuous Flow. Please like, share, subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode. And so here is Curb Culture. Check it out. Hey guys, thank you for joining us on our first podcast. I have a very special guest, Missy and Willie. They are from Continuous Flow in Florida. You guys, to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your business and what got you into curb painting.
Okay. Well, I'm Willie, and this is Missy. We own a business called Continuous Flow LLC. We specialize in very elaborate, custom designed curb address art and paintings. Started about a year ago, a little over a year ago, maybe, in another city, and decided that we did so well there that we decided to move to Pensacola, Florida, where the water is legitimately emerald green. I always have to say that because it still impresses me. We came to Pensacola and we're doing really well here. My favorite style of art is realism. And the more comfortable I got with painting curb addresses, the more I pushed myself to apply that realism. And when I did, we got a lot of positive feedback. And when that happened, it just seemed like, I don't know, it kind of opened our eyes to the possibilities with custom address painting.
Awesome. Yeah, your stuff is beautiful and it definitely sets you apart. I really admire your work and why we connected. Okay, so let's get started. This podcast episode is laying the foundation for the rest of this season. We want to figure out where curb painting actually started. But where do you think it started and who was the pioneer for curb?
Okay, well, we don't know exactly that. I could take hours speculating, but we know that in 1949, a guy named Ed Seymour created spray paint. And we know that his company is still around. It's called Seymour of Sycamore, and they still make spray paint. They make industrial brand spray paint. And we assume, based on that knowledge, that somewhere around that period of time, 1949 or a little later, somebody decided to use said spray paint to paint a curb address on a curb. But we've heard some different things too along the way. We found out information. We know many curb artists now. We know curb painters that don't necessarily paint art on curbs, but do what's called basics, white background with the black numbers. And they know curb painters from before them and before them, and it goes back multiple generations. So we kind of have, just assume that around 1949, 1950 is when it possibly started, and we don't know exactly where. We know that a lot of people in California, a lot of people had them. I don't know about a lot of other areas, but the more I meet people out in Texas, I find out that Texas has had them for a long time. People have had curbs from before 1949. So somewhere in there, it had to start.
I read, I think it was the early 1900s in Mexico. There was a milk truck was leaking. And as it started to drive, someone got the idea that the line that is leaving to create a traffic line at that point.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's weird because when we got into curb address painting and we started Googling, um, businesses and all over the place, it actually, the marking companies would come up, like ones for traffic or for, whatever parking spots, parking lot striping, that type of stuff. That came up before anything on curb address painting. We had to search and search and search initially to start finding other stuff related to address painting.
So with that being said, I know you just mentioned too that you've seen several generations of curb painters. So how do you think the perception of curb painters has changed from maybe 20, 30 years ago till now?
Good question. So I think that originally, it all kind of groups into one thing. I think originally, you got to remember back then there was no social media. They're just, things did not spin off the way that they do now. Trends were isolated to places. It took a lot more to get trend things out there. But based on the people that we've met, I think that generations had a lot to do with it. I think the way that they perceived curb painting 40 years ago, which we do know people that painted curbs 40 years ago, was that it was just a basic white background with black numbers. That was one perception. I think, you and I, had spoken about this a little bit earlier. Social media has had an extreme effect on this industry specifically. I think, you had brought up some really good points, and Missy's brought this up before. Customers being able to express their whatever it is that they like on their curb or on their home or in any way that's visible just to everybody that drives by creates a pretty high demand for curb address painting to become custom. So the perception changes at some point in history when somebody decided, hey, I'm going to put a border around this thing. I'm going to use different colors. I'm going to use spray paint. I'm going to try different fonts for the numbers. And then as software and different types of machines were developed to make stenciling easier, it just took off.
Like from a basis of need to mark the house and the numbers to being able to express yourself inside and outside of your home as well, I think.
Yeah.
Curb appeal.
Yeah.
Essentially. In this podcast, we're documenting the actual history that we know now so that the future curb painters, have this to look back on too. So that goes into like the role of social media. Okay. Obviously, it's completely blew us up compared to what it was. Like it needs to be an industry that is recognized.
Yeah.
So how do you think that the social media will do that for us?
I think there's been a huge change already just in the last year that we've been in it. Because whenever we first started, I was looking on Facebook, I was looking all different places, and you could find one or two, and that was it. That was all we could find. And then all of a sudden, we found another group, and then another group, and then another, until we've grown into this community that we are a part of that has grown so much. Initially, we couldn't find anybody. We couldn't find anything except for the one or two groups that we had initially seen that had sparked our interest, but that was it. But now, I mean, my page is full of it every day of new artists. And I'm like, oh, look at this, look at this. So it is changing every day.
It's exciting. I always get like a curb painter as a suggestion on Facebook or, with TikTok, and I add them every time. No, I literally just got chills when you said that, Missy, because like, I never really thought I could feel like a part of a community like the way I feel with the curb painting community. It's crazy.
Yes.
So, okay. Yeah. Social media. And how has that connected us? How has that been the connector that's given us the support that we need, and encouraged us to do better? What do you think?
I think when Missy found the original curb painting group on Facebook, it's a Facebook group. It's a private group for strictly just curb painters. I mean, we assume that maybe you see the number on there now, it's over 500, right? That's just that one little group. And it doesn't even begin to encompass how many address painters are out there. It's just an area where the vast majority of artists that are trying to really push the limits with custom curb address painting are at. When we got into that group, it radically changed our life. I knew that I could already paint good address paintings that were, beach scenes and different stuff like that. I had an art background, but when we got onto the original curb painter group, which is social media, we could see what other people who had been doing this custom into the business for 10 years or more had been doing. And it just blew us away. I mean, you look on there and we've seen your work on there. And you're one of the few like us that really likes to hand paint. A lot of other curb artists stick to stencils, but that's not to put them down at all. Stenciling now is not. If anybody's watching or listening to this and they're thinking about a stencil that their grandma made in order to spray a piece of pottery with a flower, it's way past that now. It's way past that. The amount of energy and knowledge and training that you have to go through in order to do some of the curbs that people are seeing out there now is just, it's extensive. It's a never ending learning process. It's very frustrating. I've been to college. I've done a lot of different work, and sometimes it's harder to do this than it has ever been to do anything else. So, we saw that on social media. So, we talk a lot about Facebook in that group because it means so much to us. You, Curb of Art, Southern Curb Pros, even Aaron Fusa. When you look at TikTok or Instagram, you see them on there too. They're everywhere. I mean, they're starting to pop up.
There was the delivery driver that came in where I was painting one time, and he came up to me and goes, "Are you the girl from TikTok?" And I was like, maybe. But it's just crazy. It's like now we're getting recognized by people that are not even in the industry. And that's so fun.
It happened to us at Hobby Lobby.
Did it? I love that. I do want to say that not just artists can do this. This doesn't have to be an artistic thing. Technically, there are some people that are in this industry that don't consider themselves artists. I think they are, but they don't. But that's the beauty of it, is that more people can actually kind of dip their feet into this and try it out and see if they like it and make their own business, because it's something that you don't necessarily have to have a lot of skill to do, but it's exciting if you do have a lot of skill. But you don't have to be an artist in order to be in this industry. You got a post one time that said, like, we're harder on ourselves than
Mhm.
like the customer is. If they could get something that's just slapped on there and we could take 2 days to do it and it's just not even perfect, then it's like they don't care that it, you know what I mean? Like that it's
Yeah.
perfect to the detail. They just want their address to be painted on their curb. You know what I mean? And so you said once your mind kind of changed and you weren't so critical, it kind of changed for you, right?
Yeah.
What happened with that?
So that's a daily challenge with us. And that really is the dividing line between what most people think of. If somebody's listening to this podcast or watching, most everybody's seen the basic black and white versions of curb address painting, or maybe something with just a little stencil decal that's on the side of it. That's completely different than custom artistic curb address painting. And so we started in the custom end, we never even considered doing the basic end. So for us, being detailed, not accepting any blemishes, making sure that the image looks the way that we know at the very least the customer's going to want, and then thinking about the competitive end of it, right? Not only are we putting this down, but we've got to be able to provide for ourselves, our family, and then at some point in time, really build it into an actual established full-time business. That's a lot of pressure. So you're on a curve, whether it's 2 hours, whether it's 2 days, whatever it is, you're not leaving until it's perfect. Measurements are correct. Everything's right. The customer is jumping out of their shoes because they could not even imagine what it would look like. And then you have to switch gears and realize you're literally driving yourself crazy. You're pushing yourself so hard that you've locked yourself in. And as a business, running it as a full-time business, we are a full-time business and we have control. There was a point at which, and really this is a blessing. It's not accredited to Missy and I as our intellect or some self-control that we had over ourselves. We ended up for reasons outside of ourselves being persuaded to do the basic version of the curb addresses. And when we did that at a very, very low cost, where we didn't have time to worry about those details, it gave me the space I needed to back up a little bit from what I thought customers wanted, what I thought was what I needed to push myself. And then when I went back into doing a custom, it freed me up to try new things in other areas that I wasn't even considering. So that's what I meant that day when I posted that. It was because of a post that somebody had made about themselves having what we call crud vision. Have you ever heard of that?
Maybe explain.
Crud vision's when you're so focused on one little detail of the painting and you're done and you walk away and you come back and there's something else that you weren't even looking at. So you're just overly focused. So my response to that person was basically, you got to relax.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it made a huge impact on me too, realizing that, we're more critical of ourselves. So,
Yeah.
a lot of times people that don't do art for their full-time job, they expect it to be like perfect image. Now that TikTok has come into play, now that we have these painters that are making really cool, like it's almost trendy being a curb painter on TikTok, so now that we kind of are the breakthrough moment, 2025, for curb painters, and what do you want your legacy to be? Continuous flow. Like, what do you see the future, and what do you want to leave as your legacy?
That is a very difficult question. As far as the future of the business and our future as curb artists, if you look at the history of art in general, anybody can go on Facebook and start looking at art or Google it or whatever, and you're going to see a lot of what you've seen for a long time. You're going to see artists that paint on canvas. You're going to see the artists that spin the oil all over the different things. They're constantly trying to create new types of art on the same mediums. Yeah, different mediums on the same canvas. And so for me, being that I had done portraits and done some tattooing earlier in my life, and all of us have watched well, I'm 47. I'll be 47. Sorry, I'm 46. This month I'll be 47. Growing up, I watched so many custom explosions in different genres, right? I watched, with portrait tattoo artists, right? Kat Von D. I watched Jesse James and Paul Jr. and Sr. with custom motorcycle builds. It seems like since I was a kid, I've watched industries that normally you would not the whole world wasn't paying attention to, have these custom explosions in them. Amazing artists, amazing painters in those industries. Even now you can watch like Count's Custom Cars where, it really boils down to that one guy on there that paints that car in a certain unique way that nobody else is doing. Even all of those industries, they're all starting to kind of, I don't want to say putter out, but they've become more niched again, right? Everybody isn't paying attention to custom builds and as much as they used to. It's only gearheads that are watching that, but they had their explosion. The one part of the art industry that I could see that has not had that explosion is curb art. And if it was still just basic black and whites or in its infancy stage, I would say, well, we got a ways, but now you could see it. I mean, it's right in front of your face. Once you get exposed to it, you're not going to forget it, whether you're a curb painter or not. You're going to be like, wow, somebody actually just put that on a curb. So intuitively, I know, to answer your question, I know intuitively that relates to our legacy, right? As a business, it relates to me as an artist, that if I can continue to do the specific type of art that I'm focusing on, as far as the legacy, my nieces, my nephews, they're going to have friends, if all goes right. They're going to have friends that are like, wow, your uncle, Willie Nelson, is that curb painter who I saw him on TikTok. We've gotten calls from people in Colorado that want us to come out and paint their curb,
Right.
and we're not the only ones. Everybody's starting to receive calls from people all over the country. And, we're signing our work now, right? Like the customs that I'm doing, we're having to sign because what happens when Discovery Channel calls, Nat Geo, that's every breakout moment now has to do with those shows putting you up in front of everybody. And even though that sounds like a reach and some people may think I'm crazy for saying that, I watched that happen generation after generation after generation, right? As soon as those people got hit by all those big producers, and it's not always just one artist. At the same time, it may be 6 different artists. They may decide, hey, this industry's ready. We're going to show them some love. Let's contact these people and blow them up and do a show, do whatever. And then all of a sudden now, your piece of art that you painted a year ago on somebody's curb increased their home value by $20,000.
That's crazy to think about.
It is. Think about the word curb, right? If you think about it, all of these different businesses have mastered the facade of the house, landscaping businesses, framers, architects, box builders, everybody. But when it's that first 12 inches that you're going to see, everybody's backed off of that, except for curb artists. And so, I'm just really excited. I think there's a lot of legacy for all of us. I think, doing this podcast with you, I think, with the other people that I've mentioned on here, and I'd like to mention somebody before we get off here, by the way, but I think the more exposure we get, I think we're going to see some really amazing things, all of us, especially as the first generation, once it does explode that big.
Basically, we are the first generation of these like mini mural curb artists, So it's been such a pleasure meeting you guys. Will forever be y'all's friend, and you'll always be a connection for me and just a support system. Anyways, found it, you guys. All right. Well, thanks again. I'm going to wrap this up, and I really appreciate y'all coming on here.